Hello, and welcome to the latest installment of Law & Order, the video series where I look at and unpack stories from games. In this one, we'll be diving into Obsidian and Bethesda's 2010 title, Fallout New Vegas. After Fallout 3, Bethesda got to work on another fantastic IP, and that was the magical world of Skyrim, which is part of the Elder Scrolls. The studio was busy with Skyrim, and they initially wanted to make another add-on pack for Fallout 3, but Todd Howard pushed for a new full game, and this was accepted. So Bethesda contracted Obsidian, which was made up of many of the developers of the original Fallout game. This was to the delight of many of the OG Fallout fans, but were new fans to the franchise since they loved Fallout 3. But when the game was released, it was considered by many, new fans and old, to be one of the greatest RPG games of all time. So in this video, we'll be looking at the story of Fallout New Vegas. This game differed from the other games in the series, as in New Vegas you play as a courier who didn't grow up in one of the vaults. Still, the game has a great story with 4 different storylines depending on where you want to take the future of New Vegas. I previously did a video on the story of Fallout 3 along with another video on the vaults of Fallout 3, and I'll be following the same format here. This will be a video on the story of New Vegas, and a separate video will be coming on the vaults of the Mojave. Please note that there will be spoilers for Fallout New Vegas in this video, along with spoilers for the ending of the Fallout TV Series 2, so you have been warned. We're about ready to jump in, but before we do, a quick message from the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark VPN. In today's age, internet safety should be your #1 priority. In our society, we use the internet for the majority of our daily tasks, be that internet banking, sending and receiving emails, watching on-demand shows, or more relevant to this channel, playing video games. Well, thanks to Surfshark VPN's ability to encrypt your data, you are able to protect your online identity and your information from nefarious hackers, criminals, and large corporations. Surfshark VPN also allows you to take advantage of games being released earlier in a different time zone by letting you switch your location to match that time zone. When you're tired of getting beaten when gaming, you can settle down on the couch and watch some Netflix. If you discovered that your favourite show isn't on there, well, fire up your Surfshark app, change your location, and bam, you can relax and watch your favourite show. What's more is that Surfshark VPN gives you DDoS protection too. Another of the great things about Surfshark VPN is that you can use unlimited devices on one account. So go ahead and get protected today by using the coupon code GAMINGHARRY and pick up an extra 4 months free by using the link in the description or the pinned link in the comments section. And with all that being said, let's jump into the video. It's the year 2281, 4 years after Fallout 3 and 204 years after the Great War and the subsequent nuclear annihilation. Our character, known as the Courier, or Courier 6, is in the Mojave to deliver a package to New Vegas, with New Vegas being the remains of Las Vegas, Nevada. The package was destined for someone named Mr. House. However, the delivery does not go exactly as planned. The courier is intercepted by a man called Benny, who is being flanked by a couple of hired goons from a gang called the Grey Khans. Dragging the courier off to a cemetery in the town of Good Springs, Benny tells the courier that he's made his last delivery and pulls out what appears to be a poker chip, the precious cargo that the courier was meant to deliver. Benny then pulls out a gun and shoots the courier in the head. Miraculously, the courier isn't dead, and the courier is taken into Good Springs by someone and is patched up by a doctor. A couple of days later, the courier wakes up and speaks to the doctor, Doc Mitchell. After checking the courier's memory, Doc Mitchell gives the courier a handy Pip-Boy 3000, as Mitchell grew up in a vault, and sends him on his way, telling him to check in with Sunny Smiles. After speaking to Sunny and helping her with a gecko problem, the courier speaks with a Securitron called Victor. Victor is the Samaritan that found the courier and took him to Doc Mitchell. Speaking with another resident, namely Trudy, she reveals that she thinks there's something off about Victor and his cheerful demeanour. Trudy also explains that Good Springs has encountered a spot of bother. A trader called Ringo stumbled into the town saying he'd been attacked by a gang called the Powder Gangers and needed a place to hide, so the town have let him hide out in an old gas station. The Powder Gangers and their leader Cobb have come after him. The courier can choose to help out by taking out the attacking Powder Gangers, or the courier can do the opposite. Throughout the courier's journey, he will come across various settlements that require help, and this can result in either being idolized or hated by these communities. Anyway, the courier leaves Good Springs and sets off across the Mojave. Going off of the delivery assignment note, in order to try and find the men that tried to kill him, the courier heads for the Mojave Express in the town of Primm. Arriving in Primm, the courier is alerted by a member of the NCR, the New California Republic, who says that some convicts broke out of the nearby NCR correctional facility and have taken over the town. The people there are in hiding, and the NCR are doing nothing as Prim does not fall into NCR jurisdiction. Speaking to an NCR officer, Lieutenant Hayes, Hayes says that he's been trying to organise getting some firepower in to deal with the convicts, but that things are moving slow. Needing to get into Prim, the courier heads into the town and finds the town sheriff dead, along with his wife. Taking out a few convicts, the courier goes into the town's casino, the Vicky and Vance, and speaks with Johnson Nash, who runs the Mojave Express. Looking at the delivery assignment, Nash explains that the job seemed strange from the off, but that it paid well so that they couldn't turn it down. He mentions the cowboy robot, meaning Victor, and that 6 couriers were hired, each carrying a different item, some dice, a chess piece, and our courier, of course, was carrying a platinum poker chip. Payment had been received from the other 5 jobs, but Courier 6's package, our package, did not make it. Nash mentions that someone turned the job down, and that Courier 6 took that person's place. Nash mentions that it seemed like that person and our courier have history. Anyway, Nash mentions that a few days prior he'd got word of someone passing through town wearing a daisy suit, and the man was with some great Khans and was talking about a chip. This is Benny, alright. Unfortunately, the courier needs to talk to Deputy Beagle to find out more information on where Benny went, and I say unfortunately because Beagle has been captured by the convicts and was taken to the nearby Bison Steve Hotel. So the courier heads over there to try and save Beagle. Taking out all of the escaped convicts, the courier finds Deputy Beagle, and meeting him outside, Deputy Beagle says that he heard Benny and the Great Khans were going to head through another town called Nipton, through to a place called Novak. Before leaving, the courier can choose to help Prim restore law and order after the demise of their sheriff, after freeing a former sheriff named Myers from the NCR prison, or by giving control to the NCR. Given how much of a fanny Deputy Beagle is, useless as a deputy, the NCR is probably the best option. Heading towards Nipton, the courier finds the town burning. All kinds of messed up stuff has gone on here. The courier is introduced to the Legion. A bunch of powder gangers had been rounded up by this Legion and were given lottery tickets, which determined how they would be punished. Pretty brutal. Speaking with the leader of the Legion scouts, the Frumentari, a man named Vulpus Inculta, the courier learns that the Legion modelled themselves on the military of the Roman Empire. The reason that they are there is that the powder gangers wanted to kidnap some NCR troopers in Nipton, so the town's mayor facilitated it, but the mayor was also in contact with the Legion, who wanted to make an example out of both sides, so they paid the mayor 8,000 caps. The Legion spare the courier, instead telling the courier to inform the rest of the Mojave, but especially the NCR, what they saw the Legion do to Nipton. The courier then leaves Nipton and heads towards Novak. The town of Novak itself is characterized by a massive dinky dinosaur statue outside the Dino Delight Motel, the name Novak coming from the term no vacancies. The courier comes across Victor. Victor says that something gave him the notion that he needs to go to New Vegas, so he's passing through Novak on his way. The courier speaks to various people in Novak, and a conversation with Jeannie Mae Crawford, who runs the motel, sees her mention a place nearby named Helios 1, along with other locations, namely the Repcon rocket factory and the Legion town of Nelson. She also mentions Benny, mentions that he was pretty rude, but she mentions that the Great Khans with Benny seemed to know one of the town's snipers, Manny, so the courier goes to speak with Manny. Manny mentions someone else named Boone, and mentions that both he and Boone used to be a sniper-spotter duo in the NCR. They've had a falling out recently though, as Manny didn't see eye to eye with Boone's wife, Carla, and one day, she went missing. Manny explains that he used to be a member of the Great Khan, so that explains how they knew him. Manny knows about the chip that Benny took from the courier. Manny offers to help the courier find out where Benny is, but wants something in return. It's simple. Manny wants junk. But that junk is in the nearby ghoul-infested Repcon factory. Going to the factory, it turns out that the ghouls there are scientists, and they want to commandeer a rocket and fly it into space. The courier can choose to help them achieve their goal, but this choice will have ramifications on the town of Novak in the near future, depending on the ending. Whilst they're in Novak, the courier can also help Boone figure out what happened to his wife. Carla was kidnapped by the Legion and was taken away, so Boone presumes her to be dead. He wants vengeance, and he believes someone in the town sold her to the Legion. He wants the courier to find out who it was, and he gives the courier a beret and tells him to lead the guilty person to a specific spot, and he will kill them. After some investigating, the courier finds out that it was actually Jeannie Mae Crawford, the manager of the motel. She had a hatred for Carla, as she was one of the stuck-up city folk and didn't want her to take Boone away from the town. Leading Jeannie Mae to the agreed spot for Boone and putting the beret on gives Boone his vengeance, but he vows to go on hunting the Legion. The courier finds out from Manny that the Great Khans had headed for a place called Boulder City. As a side note, Manny's personal terminal mentions that the chip Benny took was actually the property of his boss. and that he's been very twitchy since stealing it. In Boulder City, an NCR lieutenant there mentions that one of his patrols came under fire from the Grey Khans. The NCR troops chased the Khans into the ruins of Boulder City, and 2 of the NCR troops got captured. Offering to enter the ruins, the courier speaks with the leader of the Khans group, a man named Jessup. Jessup is very surprised to see that the courier is up and about and, alive. Jessup then mentions that Benny stabbed them in the back, didn't pay them, and took the chip back to the New Vegas Strip. He also explains that Benny is one of the chairmen, the people who run the Tops Casino in New Vegas. The courier can choose to help settle things between the NCR and the Grey Khans. Whatever the courier chooses, he sets out for New Vegas. After a long trip across the Mojave fighting various enemies such as fiends, the courier arrives at the Strip. Victor is there waiting for the courier, and after welcoming them to New Vegas, invites them to the Lucky 38 casino to speak with Mr. House, the man in charge of New Vegas. Going to the Lucky 38, the courier goes to the penthouse and speaks with Mr. House. He's a computer. House asks the courier to retrieve the chip from one of his employees, Benny, by any means necessary and to bring it back to him. The chip is of immeasurable value to Mr. House. Mr. House tells the courier that Benny will be surrounded by his 4 bodyguards, but that he's usually alone when he's in his suite on the 13th floor of the Tops Casino, and advises the courier to seek a man named Swank, Benny's second in command. With that information in hand, the courier heads to the Tops. Speaking with Swank, and depending on whether or not they have the gift of the gab, the courier informs Swank about what Benny's plans are, that Benny is making his own play in order to seize control of the Strip, that Benny tried to kill him and took the platinum chip. Realizing that Benny is trying to screw over their boss, Mr. House, Swank has had enough and gives the courier the key to Benny's suite on the 13th floor. Now, what to do with Benny? The courier can go to Benny's suite and wait for him there, and he can speak to Benny, who is very surprised at the courier's appearance. They speak in private. Of course, Benny offers the courier the chance to help him take over New Vegas. The courier can kill Benny and take the chip. If the courier isn't wily enough or decisive enough, then Benny will simply run off with the chip. And this is where everything starts to go crazy. In a back room in Benny's suite, the courier is greeted by another Securitron, and this one is called Yes Man. He used to be one of Mr. House's Securitrons until he was captured by Benny and programmed by a woman named Emily Ortle. Yes Man is incapable of saying no, hence the name. Yes Man's new role is to monitor Mr. House's data network and decode House's encrypted transmissions for Benny, which is how Benny knew which courier would be carrying the chip. Yes Man knows all about the platinum chip and Benny's plans. Yes Man explains that Benny's and his plans was for an independent New Vegas. To achieve that, Benny wanted to use the platinum chip to copy Yes Man's matrix onto the Lucky 38's mainframe, effectively wiping out Mr. House. Because of Yes Man's programming requiring him to follow any order given to him, this would essentially give Benny total control over New Vegas. Yes Man wants the courier's help in deciding which of the region's tribes that are vying for some type of control over the Mojave can be left alone, and which group need action taken against them. Yes Man mentions an imminent attack by the Legion on the NCR-controlled Hoover Dam. We'll now break from the story for a bit and discuss some New Vegas history. So let's go back to just before 2077, before the bombs fell. Robert Edwin House has a storied history, but it's not one I'm going to go too deep into here. Basically, as a 22-year-old, Robert House created Robco Industries, and it soon became one of the most profitable companies in the world, and House himself had managed to amass personal wealth of around $30 billion. He also managed to obtain interest in Repcon and the Lucky 38. House also managed to predict that the world would be destroyed in a nuclear war within the next 15 years, so House started making plans. He would attend a meeting with Vault-Tec in which he would learn about the true nature of the Vault-Tec vaults and their related human experiments. Knowing that nuclear destruction was imminent, House uses influence to ensure that no missiles would hit the city of Las Vegas by creating a system that would destroy any incoming warheads by way of transmitting disarm codes. Wanting to live through the nuclear destruction and to be able to see the world afterwards, House had his body enhanced and placed inside the life support chamber inside the Lucky 38, and his brain was wired into the information network via a supercomputer. Then, the bombs fell in 2077, with 77 warheads targeting Las Vegas. A few missiles hit Vegas, but the city was spared from an inevitable destruction. One problem: Mr. House had developed the platinum chip, and it was to be delivered to him on the day the bombs fell. However, the bombs fell before the chip could be delivered to him. This meant that he couldn't install the far superior upgrade for his defenses, so had to rely on an inferior OS. Despite this, House still managed to save Las Vegas from complete destruction. House would remain in a coma for decades, and New Vegas, as it became, lay dormant. That was until 2274. Mr. House decided it was time to rise again and commanded his Securitrons to move from the Lucky 38 and onto the Strip. This was because NCR scouts had arrived at the Hoover Dam on the orders of their president, Aaron Kimball, as the dam could be restored. House, in response, turned to 3 tribes who renamed themselves the Chairmen, the Emerters, and the White Glove Society, and House gave each of these tribes their own casino, and they would become employees of Mr. House. New Vegas was then established as a free economic zone, and House would become the president of New Vegas. The Chairmen were a warrior tribe before 2274, the Emerters were a raider tribe, and the White Glove Society were essentially cannibals. Although they were forced to give up their preferred diet, they still secretly partook in cannibalistic meetings and feasts, kidnapping people that they could serve up to the rich. Anyway, the 3 families along with the Securitrons would meet the NCR there at the dam. House, then, in exchange for his help with the Hoover Dam and giving the NCR McCarran Airport to use as their base, House proposed and signed the New Vegas Treaty. This treaty was especially beneficial to the NCR, as trying to take the dam by force along with the Strip would have left the NCR weak and open to attack by other newcomers to the area, Caesar's Legion. So, as of the time that the game takes place, the NCR are in control of the Hoover Dam. The conditions of the treaty are that 95% of the power produced by the dam would go to the NCR territories, and 5% would go to powering the Strip itself. In return, NCR citizens would be allowed access to gamble in the Strip's casinos. The NCR would establish an embassy in the Strip. There would be a Legion attempt to take Hoover Dam in 2077, but we will get to that shortly. But with all that explained, let's jump back into the story. Leaving the Tops Casino, Volpes and Coulter approaches the courier and presents them with the Mark of Caesar. Caesar wishes to speak with the courier. The courier is also approached by someone from the NCR embassy on behalf of Ambassador Crocker. He would also like to speak with the courier. Returning to Mr. House, he asks for the platinum chip. He says that he and the courier have much to accomplish, and being invited to the depths of the Lucky 38, the courier sees a glimpse of Mr. House's plans. It's a demonstration of his Securitrons being upgraded from simple weaponry to absolutely devastating weaponry capable of going to war. Mr. House, it turns out, has a secret weapon. An army of these Securitrons underneath the Legion's camp at Fortification Hill, hidden inside a derelict weather station. Now that courier has the chip, he can choose to help Yes Man, Mr. House, the NCR, or the Legion, but before the courier makes a decision, we need to discuss someone named Ulysses. During the meeting with Johnson Nash in Prim, Nash says that someone had previously turned down the courier job, meaning that Courier 6 took this man's place. This man's name was Ulysses. Ulysses has a very detailed backstory, but I'll keep it brief for the sake of time. Ulysses was formerly a member of the Twisted Hares, a tribe from Arizona who struck up a partnership with Caesar's Legion, who wanted to conquer Arizona, and the Twisted Hares became scouts for the Legion, with Ulysses becoming one of the best. But the Legion betrayed them once their campaign had ended by enslaving the Twisted Hares, as they had with Arizona itself. The Twisted Hares were wiped out, but despite this, Ulysses remained part of the Legion and abided by a code given to him by Caesar. As most couriers were members of the Legion, Ulysses was not allowed to kill another courier. One day, Ulysses came across a place known as the Divide, and this place was full of things from the old world, pre-war, and Ulysses saw this as home. Then it was annexed by the NCR, and Caesar would send an army to seize it. One day, a courier turned up in the Divide with a package from the NCR. And that courier was our courier. Now, the courier didn't know what was in the package, he was just paid to deliver it. However, inside said package was a detonator, which could still be used to activate the warheads in the Divide, since a lot of unused warheads still sat entombed within the numerous silos in the area. The courier left and Ulysses looked at the package. It had a sigil of pre-war America on it. It was the sigil of the Enclave. If you want to know more about the Enclave, please check out my Fallout 3 video. Anyway, the device began speaking, and it activated some of the underground missiles. Since the silos were not open, the detonations caused ruptures in the landscape, and this tore the Divide apart, killing both NCR soldiers stationed there and large numbers of the Legion too. It's still not exactly clear why the Enclave wanted the Divide destroyed, but an anger raged inside Ulysses. He almost died but was saved by medical iBots. Ulysses saw the Courier as responsible for the destruction of the Divide, but considered the Courier dead from the blasts. After this, Ulysses headed east in an attempt to join it with the Legion. Caesar would then send Ulysses to Utah to the Great Salt Lake. Caesar had sent Ulysses as a way to unite a tribe known as the Whitelegs against a settlement called New Canaan. This leads us to a man named Joshua Graham. Graham was a Canaanite, but abandoned the Canaanites in order to join Caesar's legion as a legate, and was an instrumental part of Caesar's campaign in Arizona. Remember I mentioned a legion assault on the Hoover Dam in 2077? Well, Joshua Graham was in charge of that assault. He failed. Caesar punished Graham for this failure by covering him in pitch, which is flammable resin, set Graham on fire, and then threw him into the Grand Canyon. Somehow Graham survived, and after a painstaking 3 months, Graham was welcomed back by the Canaanites. He would be known in the Legion as the Burned Man, since use of his real name was punishable by death. This is where Ulysses comes in. Graham returning meant that Caesar would set his sights on New Canaan itself. Ulysses made contact with the Whitelegs, and long story short, the Whitelegs sacked the city and murdered indiscriminately. Survivors, including Joshua Graham, fled into the Zion Canyon, joining the Dead Horses, and Graham became their acting war chief, and another man named Daniel joined another tribe called the Sorrows, but these two would have differing methods. Anyway, with Ulysses' job done, he settled in the Mojave. One day, whilst tracking irregular weather patterns, Ulysses discovered the Big MT, or Big Mountain, which is a pre-war research and development center and a defense contractor. It was home to many different areas of research and the location of a concentration camp for Chinese American prisoners. Whilst there, he got tangled up in a Brotherhood of Steel beef between a Brotherhood assassin called Christine and Father Elijah, an elder of the Brotherhood who had gone rogue. Father Elijah has got a vendetta against the NCR, but that's something else entirely. But more on this later. Ulysses spoke with the think tank and learned about the sleeping giants in the Divide, which were missiles inside silos, and that there was a device to activate them, an iBot nicknamed Eddie. And of course, our courier would also visit the Big MT later too. Since Ulysses couldn't kill the courier because of the code, he'd let the Mojave kill the courier for him. But this wouldn't do, it would take too long. Ulysses would broadcast a message in an attempt to lure the courier to the Divide. Hearing this message near to Prim, the courier comes across the entrance to the Divide, and the words Courier 6 are written on it. How inviting. Entering into the Divide, the courier immediately enters into a missile silo and comes across an Eddie iBot. Leaving the silo, Ulysses speaks to the courier through the iBot and says that now that they're there in the Divide, the courier can now look upon the destruction they had caused. Ulysses wants the courier to find the trigger for the warheads, which had been buried somewhere in Hopeville. The courier moves across the Divide, fighting off any hostile NCR or Legion remnants that remain. The courier finds the trigger and uses it to remove any obstacles by way of exploding remaining warheads. Whilst doing so, the courier finds various logs left by Ulysses detailing his journey and what his vision is for the new world. After a long trek across the Divide, fighting hostiles including Deathclaws, the courier manages to make it to Ulysses' temple. Inside, the courier speaks with Ulysses himself, and he reveals to the courier that he holds them personally responsible for the destruction of the Divide. He reveals that he plans to launch missiles into the Mojave, as he now believes that both the Legion and the NCR are incapable of building a brighter future. He wants to destroy the NCR's supply lines by destroying the Long 15, and to destroy New Vegas so that the Legion will stop obsessing over it. There is another possible reason too, and that is to destroy the dream of the courier by destroying New Vegas completely. That's an added bonus, I guess. Ulysses can either be killed in battle or he can be talked down. Either way, if the courier has been friendly to Eddie, then the little iBot can sacrifice himself and bypass the console, allowing the courier to either divert the missiles, destroying either the Legion camp, the Long 15 or both, or can choose to completely deactivate them. For the sake of the continuing story, let's just say the courier decides to deactivate the missiles. The courier then heads back to New Vegas, as more important decisions need to be made. So first we'll start by looking at the ending, which involves going down the path of Yes Man. Yes Man wants to establish an independent New Vegas, and seeing as Benny is dead, this would mean that the courier would be in control of New Vegas. Firstly, Yes Man wants the courier to go to the Lucky 38 with the platinum chip, and wants him to replace Mr. House with Yes Man's Matrix instead. In order to do this, the courier needs to force their way into the penthouse and down into the depths of the Lucky 38 where Mr. House's life support pod is. Choosing to either kill or disable Mr. House, the courier returns and Yes Man uploads himself onto the mainframe. Sending the courier to the demonstration area, the courier sees the upgraded Securitrons in action. The courier is sent to the Legion camp at Fortification Hill. Remember earlier I mentioned Mr. House's army of Securitrons underneath the Legion camp? Well, Yes Man needs them. Infiltrating the bunker, the courier sets the Securitrons to standby mode, escapes back to the strip and goes to the Lucky 38. Yes Man says that the NCR President Aaron Kimball is going to visit Hoover Dam in order to try and boost NCR troops' morale. Yes Man says that President Kimball has an 83.75% chance of being assassinated by the Legion. The courier can choose whether to help protect Kimball or leave him to be assassinated by the Legion. Either way, the courier is then sent to the El Dorado power station to install an override chip, as this will start up the Lucky 38's reactors. Returning to the Lucky 38, Yes Man says that the Legion attack on the Hoover Dam is imminent. Going to Hoover Dam and using the battle between the NCR and the Legion as cover, the courier can either reroute the dam's power output to the bunker, therefore restarting the reactor in the bunker, waking the Securitrons, or the courier can simply destroy the dam's generators. This means that the Hoover Dam will be worthless to the NCR and they'll likely leave. Fighting their way into the Legate's camp, the courier stands against the ferocious Legate Lanius. He can either be talked down or killed, but after this, NCR General Lee Oliver approaches. He threatens the courier, but the Securitron army turns up. Oliver can be killed or talked down, and the battle is over. Of course, because this is a Fallout game, many choices give a multitude of different endings, such as what happens to the NCR and the Legion next, but essentially at the core of it, an independent New Vegas has been established, removing the threat of both the NCR and the Legion to New Vegas rule, and the courier is in charge. Essentially, the Securitron army was diverted to the strip to keep order and brought an end to any chaos on the streets. Safer streets meant people could truly enjoy the strip. This meant that places like Goodsprings thrived thanks to the business created as a result of people traveling to and from the strip. Let's now move on to the ending involving siding with Mr. House. Giving the platinum chip over to Mr. House, he shows the courier a demonstration of how he will use the chip in order to upgrade his Securitrons. Afterwards, House tells the courier to infiltrate Caesar's camp, to go to the weather station and to activate House's army of Securitrons. Caesar confiscated the platinum chip when arriving at the Legion camp, and a chat with Caesar reveals that he's been trying to get inside Mr. House's secret bunker for years, but to no avail. He wants Mr. House out of the picture by the time his Legion assault the Hoover Dam. He wants the courier to go in there and destroy whatever's inside, including the bunker, but for the sake of this ending, we're going to say to hell with Caesar the whiny little bit. Going down into the bunker, the courier speaks with Mr. House, activates the Securitrons, leaves the camp and heads back to the Lucky 38. House tells the courier that his plan is to drive business in the strip. He sees the NCR as no more than a society of customers. He says that in 20 years he'll have reignited high-tech development sectors, and in half a century he'll have people in orbit. Mr. House then sends the courier on a series of errands. He wants the courier to get a community of ex-Vault dwellers called the Boomers on board, and to destroy the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel. This is due to their willingness to preserve all pre-war technology, so that humanity cannot destroy itself again. House sees them as a threat to his goals, so obviously they've got to go. Recruiting the Boomers and helping them recover an old bomber from a lake sees them offer their assistance should the courier need it. As for the Brotherhood, well, the courier goes to their bunker in the Hidden Valley. The courier activates the self-destruct sequence for the bunker, destroying the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel and removing them as a threat. Mr. House then tells the courier about NCR President Kimball's imminent visit to Hoover Dam and the high chance of him being assassinated by the Legion. Mr. House needs Kimball to survive, as defeat at Hoover Dam will likely result in NCR citizens blaming Kimball for the loss. This means that Mr. House can use Kimball as a scapegoat. If Kimball dies, then the blame will shift to New Vegas itself, and Mr. House needs tourism in New Vegas. Politics. Going to Hoover Dam, the courier can choose to help save Kimball's life, or just do nothing and let him die, but this obviously has wider ramifications on the ending. Either way, the courier returns to Mr. House, and with the Legion's assault on the dam imminent, Mr. House needs the courier to go to the El Dorado substation and install the override chip, in order to start the reactors in the Lucky 38. With that done, the courier is sent to Hoover Dam whilst the battle is raging between the NCR and the Legion in order to install another override module, with this one giving House the ability to control the dam's entire power output, and this will allow House's Securitrons in the bunker to power up. House also has the courier grab a piece of paper, and on that paper are the terms for the NCR's unconditional surrender. Heading to the Legate's camp, the courier can kill or talk down Legate Lanius, and with House's Securitron army online, the courier speaks with NCR General Lee Oliver. He congratulates the courier. However, House's army turn up, and the courier ruins the general's mood by handing in the terms of the NCR's surrender. The general can either be killed or talked down, but afterwards, House speaks with the courier and thanks him for his work. Again, the intricacies of this ending depend on player action, but here's the general rundown. With House establishing control of Hoover Dam and the Strip, this meant that the Legion and the NCR were pushed out of New Vegas, and as expected, Kimball took the blame for the NCR losing Hoover Dam. For towns like Good Springs, House would send a Securitron to the town as a sign of gratitude for them helping the courier. But this was just a way for House to monitor Good Springs. Prim received Securitrons too to protect the town, but again, this was House monitoring the town, and he imposed massive taxes on the residents. For the third ending, we'll now jump into the ending which sees the courier help out Caesar's Legion. Wearing the mark of Caesar, having received it from Vulpus and Coulter, the courier heads towards Cottonwood Cove. There, the courier heads through the camp. He meets up with Cursor Lucilius, who takes the courier via the river to Fortification Hill, and getting there, the courier is stripped of all their weapons and directed up the hill and into the main camp. He heads into Caesar's tent. As a side note, if the courier didn't manage to get the chip off of Benny, it's revealed that Benny tried to take the chip to Fortification Hill in order to activate Mr. House's Securitron army and got caught by Caesar. After some formalities and listening to Caesar boast about his might and power, as was offered in the last ending we looked at, the courier was ordered by Caesar to go into House's bunker and destroy whatever is inside, and to destroy the bunker itself. After doing this, the courier returns to Caesar. Now Caesar wants the courier to actually kill Mr. House, so the courier goes to the Lucky 38 and finding Mr. House in his pod, the courier either kills or disables him. The courier then returns to Fortification Hill again. But I should probably now explain what happened in the first battle for Hoover Dam. So back in 2077, whilst Ulysses was in the Mojave, he reported his discovery of the Hoover Dam to Caesar and the Legion. They wanted to take it as part of their campaign. Caesar wanted to conquer New Vegas too, making it part of his new Rome. After what happened in the Divide with the detonation of the warheads, after the courier delivered the package, the NCR couldn't get reinforcements, so this was a perfect time for the Legion to strike. The previously mentioned Joshua Graham, then called the Malpais Legate, led the Legion in their assault on the dam. However, their direct approach was a mistake, and the Legion lost. Badly, even against a weakened NCR, led by a man named Chief Hanlon, as well as General Lee Oliver. The final part of the battle took place in Boulder City, though it wasn't really a battle. The city was rigged with explosives by the NCR, and the Legion's veterans were killed. Graham returned to Caesar, and Caesar punished him, as we've already mentioned, by covering him in pitch, setting him on fire and throwing him into the Grand Canyon, with even the utter mention of his real name being punishable by death, with Graham becoming known as the Burned Man. The Legion would then spend the next few years rebuilding and training for another assault. Anyway, speaking with Caesar again, he wants the courier to either forge Legion alliances with the Boomers and the White Glove Society, or to destroy them. Caesar has been carefully meddling in the politics of the Strip, trying to divide the three families. He wants the White Gloves to revert back to cannibalism. Caesar then suffers an attack of some kind. He's clearly not very well, but he brushes this off. He also asks the courier to destroy the Brotherhood of Steel's Mojave chapter and their bunker. After doing his tasks, if the courier has learned enough in medicine, he can return and tell Caesar that he's got a brain tumor. After being sent to retrieve a scanning module for the Autodoc machine from Vault 34, he upgrades the Autodoc to diagnose and treat brain tumors. Now the next choice comes. The courier can kill Caesar through some medical malpractice, but this requires a skill check to get out of it without hostilities, but for the sake of this story we'll just say that the courier saves Caesar's life. After treating Caesar, he speaks with the courier and says that NCR President Kimball will be visiting Hoover Dam and delivering a speech. Caesar says this is a perfect opportunity to strike and to assassinate Kimball. The courier is sent to meet it with Cato Hostilius. Cato says that it's up to the courier as to how he assassinates Kimball. Depending on player action, the courier, disguised in an NCR uniform, goes to the dam and assassinates President Kimball. I chose to rig the AA guns at the dam, bringing down his vertibird. The courier then escapes the dam, heading back to the Legion camp. Caesar says that it's time for the assault on the dam, and meeting up with Legate Lanius and discussing various tactics, the attack begins. The courier is to find the NCR commander General Lee Oliver and kill him. Finding the general, the courier is attacked by the NCR Rangers protecting the general, but after taking them all out, the courier kills General Lee Oliver. Speaking with Lanius, he tells the courier that the dam is now theirs, and this means that the NCR will inevitably pull out of the region, allowing the Legion to continue their westward conquest. They'll gather many slaves as they progress across the Mojave with the aim of conquering California. True to what Lanius said, afterwards the Legion ripped through the Mojave, enslaving most of the population. Caesar honoured the courier's actions with a golden coin, which was distributed throughout the wasteland. Towns such as Goodsprings saw many of their locals move away as they were fearful of Caesar. Novak fell to the Legion, but many citizens escaped alive. Prim was abandoned by the NCR, and the Legion soldiers would watch the town. But now onto our final ending. Accepting the invitation presented to him on the Strip, the courier heads to the NCR embassy on the Strip and meets with Ambassador Crocker. Crocker wants the courier to help the NCR out of a tight spot. He wants the courier to convince the boomers to help the NCR. So after getting them on side, the courier's next assignment is to help reduce violence in a district called Freeside, which is run by a gang called the Kings, who modelled themselves on greasers and whose leader took direct inspiration from Elvis. The Kings have been attacking NCR citizens, so after cooling down the hostilities between the Kings and the NCR citizens, the courier returns to Ambassador Crocker. Thanks to the work the courier did, Crocker trusts the courier, so sends him to Hoover Dam to speak with a Colonel Moore. Meeting with Colonel Moore, she says that something needs to be done about the Great Khans, as she believes the Great Khans are gearing up to assist the Legion in the upcoming battle. Going to meet with the Khans, Moore's intel was correct. The Khans and the Legion are in cahoots. After uncovering the Legion's true thoughts in regard to the Great Khans, the Khans' leader, Papa Khan, kills the Legion representative. The courier can then either recruit the Khans to help fight against the Legion, or convince them to leave the Mojave. Returning to Colonel Moore after the task is done, the courier is then tasked with investigating the Omertas. The courier goes to the Omertas casino and learns that the Omertas have fallen under the allure of the Legion and are arming themselves to forcefully take control of the Strip at the time the Legion attack the dam. Colonel Moore also wants the courier to take out Mr. House and to destroy the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood. Basically, a few years back, the NCR had a fight with the Brotherhood, who had occupied the Helios 1 solar power station and discovered it had a dangerous weapon, Archimedes 2, but the Brotherhood couldn't get it working. The NCR won the fight and took Helios 1. The Brotherhood retreated and seemingly disappeared, and this is why they hide in the Hidden Valley bunker. Father Elijah was the Mojave Brotherhood elder during this time. He became obsessed with finding technology in order to be able to defeat the NCR and deserted the Brotherhood, wandering different places to try and find important technology, which is why the Brotherhood assassin Christine went after him in the Big MT. His desperation to find new technologies took him to the Sierra Madre, with him desperate to get inside the casino, as seen in the DLC titled Dead Money, where he found holograms of soldiers that couldn't be defeated with conventional weaponry. Anyway, the reason that Colonel Moore wants them dealt with is that the NCR have had scouts go missing and thinks that the Brotherhood are responsible. After doing both of these tasks, the courier prevents the assassination of President Kimball, and the Legion are ready for their attack. Speaking with General Lee Oliver, he reveals that there is a plan to assault the Legion's fort. However, an engineer arrives and tells the general that the Legion have managed to find their way into the power station using the hidden tunnels. The general wants the courier to head to the Legate's camp on the eastern bank and take out Legate Lanius. The courier assists the NCR in fighting the Legion and progresses through each section of the dam. Crossing it, the courier enters the Legate's camp and speaks with Legate Lanius. This either ends in him being killed or him retreating. After the battle is finished, the general arrives at the camp and congratulates the courier on a job well done and thanks him for securing the NCR's future. The Legion have retreated and the NCR can let the dust settle. Celebrating their second victory at Hoover Dam, the NCR established their control over the Mojave. They then annexed the Strip, Freeside, and the surrounding communities. Honoured by the NCR for the support at Hoover Dam, the courier was awarded something called the Golden Branch, the highest civilian honour awarded by the NCR. As for the town of Goodsprings, the town saw increased trade, but heavy taxation by the NCR. This meant that a lot of old people living there couldn't afford to live there anymore and had to move on. If the Great Khans were drafted in to help the NCR during the battle for Hoover Dam, they became cannon fodder. If they were convinced to leave, they moved on to Wyoming and reconnected with the followers of the Apocalypse, who we'll briefly touch on next. So I just mentioned the followers of the Apocalypse. I couldn't find a suitable location to discuss them previously, so I'll discuss them briefly here. The followers are a humanitarian organisation who provide education and medical services, who were formed in Dayglow, which used to be San Diego. They were once part of the NCR but separated from them after they disagreed with the NCR's foreign policies. However, the two sides are still friendly. Caesar was actually a former member of the Followers, real name Edward Sallow. His mother sought the Followers' protection after her husband, Edward's father, was killed by a raider gang. Edward received a good education thanks to the Followers, and later in life he would be sent east to the Grand Canyon, where he discovered old history books on the Roman Empire. The Followers don't really like the Brotherhood of Steel, as the Brotherhood's goals are completely opposite to their own. They also don't like the Legion, with the main reason being that Edward Sallow becoming Caesar is a bit of a taboo subject for them. So, spoiler incoming for the ending of the Fallout TV show. Ever since the game released, there's not been a confirmed canon ending to New Vegas. However, we did see that the recent TV show left a cliffhanger. After Lucy discovered that her father Hank was a bad man who was responsible for the bombing and total destruction of the NCR's capital city Shady Sands, the Brotherhood of Steel attacked the NCR base at the Griffith Observatory. In the chaos, Hank escaped the observatory using a suit of power armor, later to be seen walking through the Mojave, with New Vegas visible in the distance. Maybe we're going to have to wait until Season 2 of the Fallout TV show in order to truly find out what the true, canonical ending to the game is, seeing that the show itself takes place around 14 or 15 years later. But that's it for this video. As mentioned earlier, I will be making a follow-up video to this one on the Vaults of the Mojave, so keep an eye out for that one. Then we'll jump into the story from Fallout 4. But I hope you enjoyed this video going over the story from Fallout New Vegas. Remember to check out Surfshark's offer. You can use the QR code on screen and this will take you straight to the offer. Make sure you do me a favor and leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and leave a comment down below with your thoughts. But for now, take care and I will see you in the next one.